that was just a brief glimpse at what Front Street looked like on the day of the Maui fire. And you see, that area is where law enforcement redirected everyone to go. They didn't send people out of harm's way. They did the exact opposite. They sent them directly into harm's way. In an area where there was no escape, you either die in the flames or you try to survive in the ocean during hurricane-forced winds while smoke, a thick smoke, surrounds you, and ashes and embers and little flames fall all around you. That's what happened to these people. And you know, we have talked a lot about the roadblocks that were in Lahaina that day, how law enforcement blocked people from escaping. But we're over a month out from this fire, and I still don't think people realize to the extent or just how far law enforcement went to block people from escaping. You see, it's not like there was just one roadblock. I've seen people talking and saying, oh, well, if police blocked one road, why not drive down the other? Well, I'm about to show you a news clip. And in this clip, you'll get some answers. You'll see that there was way more than one roadblock. In fact, it looks as if there were more roadblocks than we knew of. They blocked almost every way to escape, and they redirected everyone to Front Street. Now, you would think that if they're redirecting people to Front Street, that they would allow people to travel down Front Street. But what I've just learned is that they directed people to Front Street and then blocked the road so they couldn't leave Front Street. Up until now, we thought that they sent people to Front Street so hopefully they could drive through and reach another road and maybe get away, but that's not the case. They directed people to Front Street and then had officers on the other side blocking people from exiting. So there was just a gridlock. Everyone was stuck right there on that road, and that road you have businesses that are on fire to one side, and you have the ocean on the other side. That is what it appears happened that day. But let's go ahead and roll this clip, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
And joining us from Maui this morning is KITV4's Jeremy Lee. And Jeremy, you recently met with a Maui resident, Jonathan Herzog, who took an up-close look at the timeline of the fire. His video of the moment he abandoned his car on Front Street has now reached over 1 million views on YouTube. Good morning.
Good morning, Leah. He encountered roadblocks in the morning, and then he filmed a crucial roadblock down this way where the north end of Front Street meets Honoapilani Highway. There's a reason Jonathan Herzog's video has been viewed over 1 million times. It tells the story of Front Street in those crucial hours of 3 p.m., 4 p.m., and 5 p.m. Jonathan Herzog's day didn't just end with roadblocks, but it began with them during his AM commute from Kihei.
And then as I got into Lahaina, they were redirecting us all around through these back streets, and branches were coming down.
On his way to Kaanapali, Herzog started filming as he entered town, sensing unusual conditions.
The winds were the worst winds I've ever been in my life.
When he was later heading home through Lahaina town just before 3 p.m., he hit this roadblock on the southbound highway at Kapunakea before the Cannery Mall. Herzog backtracked to where Front Street meets the highway. Traffic moved well enough at that time to rejoin the highway near Lahaina Luna here at 3:02 p.m. But then, Herzog says, traffic snarled with downed trees and crews working to the south.
Then I ended up turning around and trying to go north again, thinking, well, at least I'll get out of Lahaina.
But to the north, the gridlock was worse, he says, so he detoured over on Baker and then south again on Waine'e. At 3:19, his camera shows a police vehicle blocking access to the highway at Papalaua. But nothing had eased up, So without GPS, he heads north to look for an open route. His first view of the fire at 3:24 p.m. on the hillside. And just before 4 p.m., he ends up in this line of cars on Front Street, in gridlock.
My goal is to get into the Kingdom Hall parking lot. Just sat there, I think it was a good 25 minutes, something like that. Holy cow, dude. So now the smoke is virtually blocking out the light. I am gonna make my way down to the water.
At 4:26, Herzog abandoned his car at Kingdom Hall and walked to Mala Wharf.
It was obvious the fire was out of control, so that's when I decided to leave the vehicle completely.
Passing vehicle after vehicle, he noticed of those on the bridge.
All of those cars were still sitting there, just same exact spots.
KITV4 reported on the other side of the Cannery Mall that Herzog passed by in the 4 p.m. hour. The highway was completely shut down for 2.5 hours at Keawe Street until at least 5:24 p.m. Traffic routed towards Front Street. At 5:30, Herzog comes to the end of Front Street, and to his surprise,
it looks like 2 police vehicles parked kind of nose to that exit for Front Street, kind of at a V like this. The traffic had basically bottlenecked right there. So there were cars in both lanes trying to go north by this point, but everyone was stopped on Front Street right there.
As the maintenance worker walked past the gridlock, heading north on foot, at 5:33 p.m. motorists had been fleeing into the water, as seen in Noah Tompkinson's video, 1 mile to the south of the Front Street roadblock near Baker, 2 blocks south of where Herzog had abandoned his car. I asked the chief of police directly at the last press conference, were command and control for fire and police in contact that afternoon in the Emergency Operations Center? He declined to answer that, but says that police were directing the public away from dangerous power lines. Hawaiian Electric says those power lines were de-energized as of the morning. Reporting from Lahaina, Jeremy Lee, KITV4 Island News.
There were so many people that were on top of the situation. They had their families. Some of them even had little belongings packed up in their car, ready to go. But they had to spend hours riding all around trying to find an exit, and every time they would find a way, it would be blocked, and then they would get redirected here, and then they would get sent here. They sent these people on a wild goose chase in the middle of this fire. And then they redirected them ultimately to Front Street. Now, you see we've seen the traffic jam, the gridlock, but I didn't know that they sent these people to Front Street and then blocked the other way. So why would they redirect them there in the first place if they knew there was no escape? That right there, that small detail, I feel like it says a lot. Because that's when you could really start thinking, or that's when it really starts looking like, oh, you are redirecting people here on purpose, knowing that they had nowhere to go. We could say, oh, it's incompetence, people were stupid, bad decisions were made. But why would all of you be blocking the exits and escape routes, and then you send people to Front Street as if that's the way to go, knowing that you got the other side of Front Street blocked so people couldn't leave in the first place? And once you pull up, you got 50 cars behind you. Before you know it, you're stuck. And it seems like that's what these people wanted. And I'm not saying that personally the officers wanted this, but they were following orders. And I guess none of them questioned those orders. I would have been questioning everything. None of that makes sense. And listen, I've told you all before that we're at the stage where everyone's pointing fingers. You know, the county is trying to blame the electric company. The electric company says that the power was shut off earlier that morning. And usually I don't try to take sides in these situations. Usually I think everyone is full of crap. But I got to admit, folks, I believe Hawaiian Electric. I believe that they cut the power off. And that's not me trying to choose a side. That's me just operating off of what I've seen. And I've seen people who drove straight through power lines. I saw someone on video removing power lines from on top of his truck. I think the power lines were dead. And when Hawaiian Electric released their statement, they said, hey, you know what? Our power lines fell earlier that day, and they did cause fires. But those fires were put out. And because of that, because of those mistakes, we cut the power off early that morning so it wouldn't happen again. Therefore, they say that the Lahaina fire had nothing to do with their power lines. I kind of believe them. I kind of believe them, especially when you look at everything else that's going on. And like I said, I've seen multiple videos of people driving through these power lines or moving the power lines from the road, taking the power lines off of their car. So, I mean, they could be lying, trying to save face, trying to save their own behinds. I wouldn't put that past them for sure. But I've seen some evidence that would suggest that those power lines were off. And, you know, watching these clips and seeing how many roadblocks there were, and those aren't even all of the roadblocks that were out there. But it goes to show that even in the early days, even when we were hearing things about roadblocks and things of that nature, none of us understood just how bad it was. I definitely didn't know that they blocked off all of these roads. You know, I knew there were a few roadblocks, but it looks like there were more roadblocks than I even thought. And I didn't know that they were redirecting people to Front Street while already knowing that they blocked Front Street from the other side. So it really looks like they set these people up for failure. You tell me what you think it looks like down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all soon in the next video.